Good morning, and welcome to the American Public Works Association's Talking Top Tech webinar series. Today's panel discussion will be 1 hour in duration and is titled Talking Top Tech, Asset Management Technologies Edition. Due to the free format of this program, it is not eligible for CEUs. My name is Rita Cassada, and I will be your facilitator today. I am an education manager at APWA, and I have a BS in mechanical engineering from Kansas State University and an MS in engineering management from the University of Kansas. I'm a licensed professional engineer in Kansas, and before joining APWA, I served as the Public Works Director for the City of Lewisburg, Kansas. A recording of today's program will be available in the APWA Members Library and on YouTube within 1 week. APWA members can log into the library to access the content free of charge. Not an APWA member? Take the members library for a test drive. Spend 2 weeks accessing all the materials in the members library for free. Look at the link to sign up in your email today after the program. Today's session is interactive, so if you have questions for our speakers, please type them into the chat pod. You may do this at any time throughout the program. When you are in full screen mode, you can access the chat pod by hovering the mouse at the top of the screen and clicking on the chat icon. Now it's time to introduce today's panelists. Becky Tamaszewski is Executive Vice President of Vision and Product Engineering at CityWorks. Carlos Osteroth most recently was the Senior Executive Level Asset Management Systems Director for the City of Medicine Hat. Jessica Gooch is Water Resources Asset Manager for the City of Portland, Maine. And Kirsten Platt is the Asset Management Administrator for the City of Newport News, Virginia. APWA is delighted to bring you such knowledge and experience. We are going to start the program with each of the panelists giving a brief overview of how they are involved with asset management technologies. Becky, would you like to go first?
Sure. Thank you, Rita. As Rita mentioned, my name is Becky Tamaszewski, and I am with CityWorks. I've been there for almost 18 years now, and prior to working at CityWorks, I worked in engineering consulting. My background is a BS and an MS in civil and environmental engineering from Virginia Tech, and during my time at CityWorks, I guess currently at CityWorks even, I'm overseeing the development of our software with a strategic focus on how our asset application is used to assist our clients with their asset management strategies and goals. And sometimes this relates to the functionality that's going into the software, and at times I also get pulled in to assist our clients with how they're architecting the software to meet their needs for asset management. As well, I do have my IAM certification.
Thank you, Becky. Carlos, would you like to go next? Carlos, would you like to give your overview? Okay, let's move on to Jessica, and we will circle back to you, Carlos. Jessica, would you like to give your overview?
Sure thing. Rita, thank you so much. So my name is Jessica Gooch. I am the Water Resources Asset Manager for the City of Portland, Maine. I've been running the asset management program here with the city, which includes over 400 miles of sanitary sewer, combined sewer, and stormwater assets and mains. And I also run our CityWorks CMMS plus all of the GIS and condition information software. We're looking at things like consequence of failure, likelihood of failure, and risk analysis using all of these different technologies, taking that data and information and making sure that we are making right decisions based on real-world information that we're finding out in the field. We have recently, in the last 3 years, taken a lot of our processes from paper processes to digital processes, so all of our field staff now have access to iPads and the maps and GIS and our CMMS system out in the field. And this has really helped us to move our data management process forward. So thanks so much.
Thank you. Carlos, are you ready to give your overview? Carlos? Okay, let's move on to Kirsten, and Carlos will circle back to you in a minute.
Thank you, Rita. My name is Kirsten Platt. I'm currently the Asset Management Administrator for the City of Newport News in Virginia. Previously, the Asset Management Division has been held within Public Works, and we recently moved to the Information Technology Department so we could take the program enterprise-wide. So we're going to add, several more departments. We've already been in engineering, but we'll go to Parks and Rec and on from there. My background is in GIS. I'm also a Virginia Tech graduate, and I have my GISP. As far as expanding that program, we're really utilizing the knowledge of the frontline professionals and their expertise in helping expand the program and further develop it. Thank you.
All right, and now we're going to go back to Carlos and see if we've got technology on our side. Carlos, do you want to give your overview?
All right, Rita. Yeah, do you hear me now?
Perfect. Go ahead. Thank you.
Okay, perfect. Yeah, okay. So my name is Carlos Alfredo. I am an asset systems manager. My expertise includes, business administration. I have a master's in business administration, a master's in engineering management, a bachelor's in mechanical engineering. I'm as well a member of different associations. That includes, APWA, NASA for the National Fleet Association, Supply Chain Management Association in Canada, as well as Project Management Institute. And now I'm as well getting into other associations relating to artificial intelligence and human development and quantum mechanics and physics. And that's, I would say, the new trend in trying to implement all of that technology into some asset management systems.
Great. Thank you, Carlos. Well, now we will get started with our questions. And the first question is for Kirsten. How can I get more buy-in with using asset management technologies?
So I'll expand a little bit on what how I introduced myself. So because the frontline professionals are out there in the field every day working on the different types of assets, and let me talk about city with public works. There's wastewater, stormwater, street maintenance, building services, solid waste. We used to have security, community maintenance. We kind of changed some of the department and moved some divisions around. And we also have traffic transportation. So by utilizing the frontline professionals, their knowledge, they know what's wrong, they know what's going on, and you can't interfere with operations and maintenance. But if we can give them the tools to kind of assist with the asset management, the registry of the infrastructure assets, help us identify those critical assets, and look at their condition, and kind of keep, taking baby steps with the program to build it from there. And also just getting their buy-in, and they'll share their knowledge and talk with their coworkers and say, hey, this is a good thing. They're really interested in what we're doing. So that's kind of the angle we've been going at, and it's been successful.
Thank you so much. The next question actually was submitted in advance from Reed. He wants to know if you're using the EPA developed and published infrastructure element lifespans or something else. And Becky, could you provide an answer for that?
Sure. So CityWorks itself is the asset management tool that's being used by our clients to take care of their asset management strategy. And in our case, we don't necessarily specify what type of lifespan needs to be applied in terms of the implementation, because it all varies depending on what the asset management goals are and the reason driving the asset management implementation within the organization. There's a variety of reasons, and sometimes it relates back to the EPA regulations, sometimes it's tied to funding strategies, and sometimes it's applied to just creating a baseline across the organization in terms of leveling goals and activities and having a common form of comparison and involvement across different departments. And so because of that, it's not necessarily driven from our end. We try and stay flexible and allow organizations to provide the metric or standard that best meets their goals.
Thank you, Becky. And looks like the next question's for you as well. What role does Geographic Information Systems, GIS, play in asset management?
So for us, and really what I would probably, and I don't want to speak for Kristen or Jessica actually, as both sides are also using CityWorks as well, and I know that they have a heavy involvement in the way that GIS is leveraged through their organization. So I think it'd probably be good for them to chime in on this one as well. But with CityWorks, the way our clients are deploying it, the GIS is really the asset repository for the application. So it provides one unified location for all asset data, the entire inventory of infrastructure, all the attributes, and it provides it in an open format that then allows for that tie-in with other applications such as hydraulic modeling or CityWorks, and provides a common platform for the various business systems to share data across and communicate with the same version of asset data to really reduce the efficiency, to maximize the efficiency and reduce additional costs and maintenance overhead. But really, from what we've seen with our clients, it makes a big difference in knowing that there's one single source of infrastructure data and that everybody's working from the same page when they're making decisions in terms of lifespan of assets, how to determine business criticality of your assets, how to determine funding for your assets, and working from that same baseline of information.
Thank you, Becky. The next question is for Jessica. What do you think would be the most critical part of implementing a computerized maintenance management system, CMMS, for asset management?
Sure. Thanks, Rita. So for us, one of the most critical components of implementing our CMMS was making sure that we understood, why we were going through this process. What information is it that we are trying to gather? And then taking a look at our GIS as well as all of the compliance. So we're under EPA administrative order. We're an MS4 community. So we want to make sure that we're collecting the right data and the right information into our CMMS so that we can then take that information and make decisions based on that. One of the other things when you're implementing a CMMS is not just the implementation process that you want to really think about. You need to start to think about, we're going to implement this. How are we then going to manage this particular process long term? So, or do we have the right staff in place? So whether it's field staff or database administrators or GIS professionals, and making sure that you really have a good grasp on that long-term planning, because the CMMS isn't just, here's your CMMS, here's the information, here are all your work order templates, go for it. It really needs to be a long-term planning and making sure that you really understand what it is that you're gathering, and then how are you going to get that information out. There also needs to be a vehicle for that. So you're putting all of this really great data in, how are you going to get that information out, be it crystal reports, be it dashboards or insights for ArcGIS, and so making sure that everything, and making sure that your GIS is in order as well, because for us, our GIS is tied very closely to our CMMS, and so making sure that there's a mechanism for keeping your GIS updated so that it can keep up and do that long-term planning for all of your assets.
Thank you very much for that answer. Just a reminder to our participants, please use the chat pod to send in your questions for our experts to answer today. So send those in and we'll get you in line to get those answered. The next question is for Carlos. Is asset management a new blockbuster as TQM, Lean, Six Sigma, and other trendy methodologies? Or is asset management here to stay as a more innovative planning tool, management technology to bring organizations to a higher service delivery capacity?
Thank you for that question, Rita. Well, in Canada, after doing some consultations with industry and subject matter experts and politicians, and that's, I think, the other dimension that we have to consider, right? While technically we are very proficient in providing with lots of data and doing the right maintenance or at least achieving the minimum levels of service, from a political perspective, not always conducting all the asset management maintenance according to what we should do is always supported. And this is where the dilemma of saying, okay, so is asset management new, or is that something that we have done for many years, even decades already, right? So what's the difference now between, I would say, the new asset management paradigm and the old asset management way of doing things? So in here we have to consider different aspects and other dimensions other than the traditional engineering and other technical knowledge areas, but as well how does that integrate with the financial systems, with the policy making and implementation of things, right? That's when we can get to know that sometimes we determine that technically we should be doing deferred maintenance or a specific type of maintenance, capital renewals and procurement in specific timelines according to the life cycle of the assets. But how many times we have come back with an answer from senior leadership saying, okay, so this is the budget that we have, so we have to defer maintenance. So the point in here is that probably asset management is just another methodology in how to do things until from a higher level of leadership, it's acknowledged the importance of sustaining or supporting that asset management plan in alignment and in coordination with other aspects of asset management. And here we have to start looking into geopolitical aspects of asset management, as well as the integration with the economy, and as well with the financial factors behind them, right? Because usually any linear assets like roads, infrastructure, bridges, seaports, anything that is major infrastructure has an economic component. And we have seen it in the past, how that integration has been transferred to other countries. So now that we are having new, I would say, political perspectives in how to deal with asset management, it's a matter of trying to plan and design for assets in a regionalized way, not only on a functional, specific way, but about regions. And this applies not only within a region, within the U.S. or North America, but as well inter-regions, right? And here's where the supply chain and other aspects, are of importance, because we can defer, we can as well transfer some of that infrastructure, some of those services out of our scope of area of expertise. So in here, asset management is usually, I would say, or could be seen as another methodology if it's not properly supported and implemented from a policy-making perspective.
Thank you so much. The next question is from Kate. Is there a good forum for sharing some of the best practices in CMMS and GIS report dashboards? And Kirsten, I believe, is going to start with that answer.
Hi. Thank you, Rita. So some of the experiences we've had with dashboards is actually pretty recent, and we've created quite a few of them. At the risk of, getting too many and then that's too hard to maintain all of them, kind of get them by program area. And you're looking at any level of user would be looking at the dashboard. So we're trying to get them very simple, but we also know upper management likes to see a picture and likes to be able to get that information by just looking at the picture quickly. So what we've done is we've made it where our dashboards will break it down by, what kind of asset type it is, or if we're looking at service request or work order. If we're trying to meet any regulatory compliance, those are listed out. And then they can, look at that dashboard, but they can also dive deeper into the data and see what they need. And I can expand on that, more if you want to contact me, or I'm sure the others can as well. But it's been very beneficial to get that dashboard out there, because people get very overwhelmed looking at the data, looking at the GIS, looking at the CMMS, looking, all those different kind of pieces. So hopefully that helps you.
Thanks so much, Kirsten. The next question is from Lori. She'd like to hear about experiences moving from paper to digital, and Becky is going to start with that answer.
So I think the first thing I would recommend in terms of looking at that process is really sitting down and understanding what is being carried through currently in terms of the paper organization that's in place, and understanding if there's a reason why it was done that way before going through the process of conversion to digital. We've seen situations where some clients will just immediately go ahead and take what they have as their paper process and recreate that in digital, and it's not always the best fit because there needs to be a time to sit down and actually review what the changes are that digital technology provides, and if in some ways that might benefit the process that was previously there. So it's not just a one-to-one conversion. But also I think in terms of digital, sitting down and understanding what the best digital tool is for that user. So, there's so many organizations that we work with where there's a range of users, such as Kirsten was talking about, where we have our field crews and what they need to use and what the best tools for them versus what a manager might actually need to be using in the back office or the dashboard. And so understanding with those field users is a field app the best tool for them to use. What type of device are they using? Are they out in the field where they have a dedicated connection? Are they back on a Wi-Fi? What are they working disconnected in the bottom of a facility? Understanding what the best tool is for each of the users as they migrate to digital, and then also understanding, especially for that data capture process in the field, for those digital tools that are in place, what does that experience need to be like for that user? How much information is being presented that they need to actually capture, and easing them into that process. Typically what we've seen is, keep it really simple to start, especially for people who previously haven't been used to using technology in the field. And over time, typically folks ask for more. That's just been the experience that I've seen. People start to get into the process, they invest in it, they're committed to it, and they can see what the technology can provide beyond what they were used to with paper, and they'll start to ask for the ability to input more information or more tools being made available to them. But it's typically back in a phased-in process, but definitely, something to be thoughtful about, especially in terms of replicating what those workflows might be and that process and the transition from paper to digital.
Thank you, Becky. And Jessica also wanted to add to the answer to that question.
Sure. I just want to expand a little bit on what Becky's talking about, because we have done exactly that. We've implemented a paper to digital process, and we did what Becky said. We started it very simply. We said, what process do we have that could really translate well to going from this paper process where we would do thousands of inspections and cleaning on a catch basin, and we figured that would translate very well into the digital process. So we took our old paper form, we talked to the field staff, we told them that we were going to change their process. We told them probably about 6 months to a year in advance just to prep them for, we're gonna change your world. And as we went through that process, one of the things that I think made it really successful was we did a lot of testing, and we did a lot of testing in the field, and we gave our field staff ownership of that process and said, here, we want you to take this iPad out with this mobile application that has all of your assets on it, it has all of your work orders, and let us know what works and what doesn't, so that they could come back to us and tell us, I think we want to change the order of these questions because how we had it in that old paper form doesn't really make sense when you're out in the field. And then going out with them and making sure the technology works. And so we've now, over the last 3 years, have done about 9,000 catch basin cleaning work orders and inspections on iPads. And it's the most rewarding thing to see this process happen and then have them ask for more. So they go out there and they started that process, and they came back to me after about a month and said, hey, if I see something out in the field that also is broken or needs work, can I also create a work order? And we weren't quite ready in the process on our end, on the systems management side of things, to do that, but we said yes. And so it's just so rewarding to see them start to want to use this technology and want to use it even more. And 3 years into the program, it's amazing the work that they're doing, and now they're training each other on how this works and how to go out and do this. And so we found it to be a real success. So.
Thank you, Jessica. That's a great success story on using technology, so appreciate that. And then Kirsten was going to add to the answer to that question as well.
Thank you, Rita. So it's just in line with what Jessica was speaking about. We have had some big successes lately, and the June issue of the Reporter, APWA Reporter magazine, has our article that we wrote about working with the wastewater division and with the frontline professionals, very closely with GIS staff to get this new workflow established, eliminate the paper, and save time and not interfere with operation and maintenance. So it's been a big success, and honestly, they've become big advocates for us and helping us with spreading different kind of apps with the other operating divisions. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And then the next question is kind of along those same lines. Maybe you can add to it, Kirsten. Who in Public Works is using the asset management technologies? You've mentioned the frontline workers, but who else is using those technologies?
Right. So, there's a fair amount of people in the office using the CMMS as well, feeding in information, so they're entering the service request for work orders, if it hasn't been entered in the field. Each division has their own workflow, so we want to complement their workflow, not dictate it. And so they'll be putting in information that will be useful. And then, other users are also, management, upper management. They'll go in and they'll be seeing what's going on, where are we, are there problem areas within the city we need to kind of look at more and, kind of get some more reporting that way. And there's, the whole financial side of it and how that information can be used. Thank you.
Thank you. Let's see, the next question's for Jessica. What are some lessons you have learned while developing and implementing your asset management program?
Sure. Thanks, Rita. So some of the lessons that we've learned, when we came into this, we had to revamp all of our GIS. Our GIS data needed a little bit of help. So we implemented Esri's local government information model, because one of the things when you're implementing an asset management program is you want to make sure that you're able to manage that asset over the life cycle. And so in order to do that, every asset needs a unique facility identifier. So we had to come in and find a way to get a unique facility identifier into our GIS so that there are no duplicates. So we did the local government information model for sewer stormwater assets, using all of those tools so that we could make sure that all of our GIS was correct. So using tools like Data Reviewer to make sure that our systems were right. We put everything into a geometric network. And you just want to make sure that when you are implementing that asset management program, to know why you're doing this. And so are you doing this because of regulations? Are you doing this because you need to be able to better track your financial expenditures? Are you doing this because you want to be able to get all this information out into the hands of the people in the field? And I think some of the lessons learned outside of that was making sure that the rest, like your IT is set up for all of what you're going to ask them for your needs. Is your structure set up correctly? Do you have the right servers? Do you have the right database administrators? Do you have someone who can write crystal reports so you can get all of that information out? And so really making sure that you understand the needs of your asset management program, and then making sure that there's an infrastructure in place as well as the right people in place to do that. Because if you don't have the right people in place or the right technological infrastructure, you may have some trouble.
Thank you, Jessica. Just another reminder to use that chat pod to send in your questions. The next question is for Kirsten. What types of data can be extracted from an asset management system?
So this is very timely since we're only 1 year in the fiscal year for us. We use it for, the data for asset management, but there's the whole financial side, and one big part is work performed for others. If you have user-funded divisions and they're asked to do something for someone else, you need to capture that work because they perform the work, but you also need to make sure the money goes into the correct account. So there's a lot of reports that are automated, sometimes they're custom, and then there are also some that we have in the CMMS that users can run themselves, and they're all crystal reports based. And it runs the gamut from financial to, how many service requests were, created in X amount of time, how many work orders have been done on this asset, how much money's been spent, what's its condition. So there's a whole wide variety. There's a virtual plethora of information that can be used for a wide variety of needs. So it's been very helpful to answer a lot of questions. And I don't want to forget to mention again the regulatory compliance piece of, like, we have a consent decree, we have the MS4. So making sure that Jessica kind of touched on this. Are you capturing? Do you have a place to capture that information? Are you capturing it appropriately? Are you going to be able to just automate those reports? So, minimize the amount of work you have to do by hand. Thank you.
Thank you. And I believe, Jessica, did you want to add to that answer as well?
Yeah, I'd like to add just a little bit. One of the, because our GIS and our CMMS are tied so closely, one of the things that I really like about that integration is that I can actually take information from my CMMS as a saved search. So I can say, show me all of the catch basin cleaning work orders that have been scheduled for the fiscal year of 2019. I can do a search on that. I can then take that information and bring it into our ArcGIS Online web mapping application and show visually where all of our open work orders are, where all of our closed work orders are, anything that's been completed in the field but not QA/QC'd. And so sometimes a visual representation of a list of 1,000 work orders or inspections tells a really great story where you can see a list and you can say, yes, they did 1,000, but being able to show where they were done. We also use information, we're collecting information on how many needles or where needles were found in catch basins, and that information then gets relayed to our Health and Human Services and our Public Safety so that they can see where we may have some issues with needles or drug abuse, that sort of thing. So it really is being able to take that information and show it visually has been really, really helpful.
Thank you. Let's look at the next question is for Kirsten. It's about, is anybody managing traffic assets, and can you tell us about your program?
So let me go back to how we are now, enterprise-wide in the city. While we were primarily supporting public works, we still supported engineering at the time, so they're still continuing to do that. In fact, they're in the same building as we are. And their group, handles the signs and things like that. Street maintenance and public works handles the pavement condition, the PCI, and that maintenance. But with the traffic, yes, they've been using the CMS for quite a few years now. There are challenges at times that we have one kind of trying to do, how are we going to develop a different workflow for them and minimize the in time in the office and keep them in the field more. But it's all based on managing those assets, all the operations, maintenance, the condition, all the parts of the asset management.
Thank you very much. The next question is for Becky. Does CityWorks integrate with the Esri apps?
Yes, it does. And so, for example, when Kristen was talking about, and Jessica both, pulling the information into ArcGIS Online. So CityWorks integrates with the Esri apps in terms of Collector, Survey 123, Workforce. Those are all, even the new ArcGIS Indoors Mobile. Those are all Esri apps that integrate with CityWorks. So those can all be used as an alternative for maybe a mobile device or another means of capturing information that then can be pulled into CityWorks as well. Also, the CityWorks data can also be shared out to what are also considered technically Esri apps such as Ops Dashboard. So you can pull that information into ArcGIS Online and use an Ops Dashboard that is representing CityWorks data or CityWorks data in combination with your GIS data. Those are both options. So either on the front end for the data collection or through the visualization and management side of the apps. The Esri apps are integrated with CityWorks.
Thank you so much. A follow-up question for Kirsten. Can you tell us what an enterprise department is?
So we're now part of information technology, so we're supposed to take our program enterprise-wide, so across the city, and sometimes that touches other departments that aren't necessarily city, like the sheriff's office, or they're multi-jurisdictional. But what they'd like us to do is, we have one GIS across the city, and it's maintained by several different groups, a couple different groups, and there's no duplication of effort. Use that same GIS as the registry and kind of expand the asset management. So what have we done for public works? What have we done for engineering? Parks and recreation is going to be coming on board, and if you think about all the different pieces and parts of a parks and recreation operation, it's getting it spread and getting a standardized asset management program across the city. And part of that is strategic planning, goals, objectives, things like that.
Thank you so much. Let's see, the next question is from Lori. How and when do we incorporate risk management into asset management, and what are the components to understanding risk? Carlos, could you possibly help with that answer?
Yes, most definitely. So first we have to have a definition about risk, and we have to get to know that there's positive and negative risks. And the fact that risk is something that affects, or an uncertainty that affects strategic objectives. That's where we have to define first what our objectives are behind each asset management program. And depending on the type of asset, we have to have clear objectives and how these assets support the corporate or the organizational greater objective, right? This is some information that we need to clarify and actually describe in our asset management plan and in our strategic asset management plan. So we have to give as well some timelines in, okay, so for how long are we going to consider certain risks and how these risks are going to impact those objectives, and of course establishing measures or controls to prevent these risks to happen. Now, there's two types of risks, right? We have the asset technical risk, and then we have the project or the program risk. And sometimes it's easy to get mixed between both, because not necessarily everyone understands that while there's a risk of the assets to fail, that doesn't mean that the overall program risk for that portfolio of assets. So in this case, what we need to first understand is what data are we going to get from our systems or our technologies, and how are we going to, I would say, report or focus on these data to identify any probabilities of success or failure. That's also something that as well with quantum technologies and artificial intelligence is something that we would like to start mapping out and start gathering some data to identify how can we make better decisions. At the end of the day, anything related to risk management has a human component, and that's a perception about what is something that is going to be significant, that is going to affect us. Usually any risks that relate to technical assets are usually well controlled, and there's specific strategies to deal with them. But the unknowns about the risk of the program that these assets support, I think that's something that we have to concentrate on. And here's where we would like to have more integration and a better, I would say, use of technologies that integrate other aspects other than just the technical side of things, but as well, the environment we are operating on, the political environment that we are working within, as well the regional and other items that affect our assets, right? And that's something that usually is contemplated within a proper asset management plan, besides just the technical side of things. So in the future, what we are trying to have is more integration between the technologies and the data that we are gathering from these technologies. How can this information can help us to better make decisions and have a proper implementation plan.
Thank you so much, Carlos. That was very helpful. The next question is someone is interested in knowing if anyone is tracking IT assets, and what are some of the things being done to manage this high-volume asset class that has a relatively short life cycle compared to the larger infrastructure assets. Becky, can you help us with that question?
So we do have clients who are using CityWorks to manage their IT infrastructure. And basically what they've done is within the GIS, you're able to track assets that aren't necessarily physically located. So even though the computer or the printer or any like the iPad even that's being dispatched out to a field crew. Even though those aren't assets that are tied specifically to a location, they can still be tracked in the TIS. And so because of that, our clients are still able to go ahead and track service claims that come in about those, how long they're being used, who they're being sent out with in the field, how many work orders are being done, what the initial cost was, how long it was used, what any warranty information, any other repairs that have been done, so any other financial investments that have been made in the IT infrastructure as well. Those can also be tracked within the TIS. And so because of that, we're still able to go ahead and do the same work order management of those assets, and then that information can then still be rolled back into the asset management strategies for the organization. So they're essentially just treated as another asset within the organization. It's just not a spatial asset. So the same maintenance structure and program strategy still is applied to the IT infrastructure.
Thank you, Becky. That was great information. The next question is for Kirsten. How can the asset management registry be augmented and kept up to date using GIS tools?
Thank you, Rita. So I kind of touched on it briefly with one of the applications used by, or apps used by the wastewater division. They're collecting assets that either need to be the attributes updated in the GIS or they're not in there at all. We've got several different apps throughout the department for different needs. One of the more recent ones that's about to be rolled out is for the solid waste division for replacing an old mainframe system for their cart inventory, and they're going to be using an app to go out there and make sure that the carts, carts have wheels, they kind of move around, so they're automated, and their recycling carts kind of capture those and where they are, what actions being done to them. With them, the condition's a little bit easier, than some maybe of the stormwater asset, but capture that as well, and then that comes back into the CMMS, and then it's going to go into we bill through our wastewater department, and so it's going to go through SAP for billing. So it's a multi-step process, but that's another means of they're out in the field. Let's go ahead and have them help us out with this registry. So that's just one example.
Thank you, Kirsten. What are the various types of software and technology that should be reviewed in relation to asset management? Becky, can you help us with that one?
And so basically, there's quite a few, I'd say, but in terms of looking at some of the other applications that are pulling in data that will start to apply to the asset management system, many of our clients are doing wet utilities with CityWorks. And so in that case, they're also looking at, in terms of their asset management strategies, the operation of the infrastructure. So information that's coming in perhaps from a hydraulic modeling system, document management systems are another great source of information that can then start to be pulled into your asset management goals, because you're looking at, I think the biggest thing is understanding the complete view of all the data that's being captured throughout the organization and how all of that can play a role in feeding into your asset management strategies. So as document management, the hydraulic modeling SCADA systems in terms of the operation of those assets, how they're performing, life cycle run times within those systems. And then also, I would say even starting to look at some of the information in relation to AVL systems, because starting to tie in together the information in relation to response times, more efficient critical response times between the crews that are in the field and issues that are being identified, and being able to then report on that information and identify how crews are being dispatched to meet level of service requirements are part of the asset management strategies. And so those are some of the ones that are the most common that we see among our client base, and are really the ones that they start to bring in and integrate and pull data across for a unified data sharing platform.
Thank you, Becky. The next question is from Stephanie. Could you share some tips for a city that's just getting started with CityWorks? And Kirsten's going to answer that one. Kirsten, can you answer that question for us, please?
All right, sorry about that, Rita. we've had CityWorks in place for 15 years, so now we're kind of looking back and like, hey, how could we have done something differently? And especially with we're pulling more departments on. So, what we feel has been is keep it simple. Really talk to the users and who you're going to be supporting. What are their needs? What are their workflows? See if their workflow can be improved, for them and for the program. Make sure, and Jessica touched on this, make sure your GIS is good. Get your model really good. Don't have too many attributes, but make sure you have the right ones. And kind of, about those regulatory compliance. See if there's anything that might be coming down that you're going to have to respond to as well. So take the time and really set things up. Think about it. You're going to have to change things, but take the time now to do it as most comprehensive plan as possible. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And Becky would like to add to that answer?
I would just like to emphasize along the lines of what Chris said, really keeping it simple. And where we see the most beneficial investment is when there's a group that's identified that's really technologically ready to go ahead and start to make that move towards using a CMMS, whether it be in the back office or in the field with native apps, and being able to really invest the time in understanding what their workflows are, what the users are comfortable with, and providing everything in a manner that is easy for them to adjust to, and then gradually introducing more of the technology, more of the fields, more requirements maybe, and implementing and supplementing those workflows. But I just really want to emphasize that really keeping it simple. It's always easier to add more stuff down the road, and our application is pretty comprehensive, and so that option is always there. But really, in terms of just getting started, it's best to start to kind of like feed it to the users as they're ready for it, and really take the time, as Kristen was saying, to really focus on what those workflows are and making sure that the user experience is going to be successful.
Thank you so much, Becky. Carlos also wanted to add to that answer.
Yes, Rita. So as well, it's so important to keep in mind that the processes, the roles and function of staff may evolve over time. And depending on whether your organization has union staff or non-union staff, some education and training needs to take place. So a big recommendation would be to have a proper education and training program that develops people and careers of staff in a, I would say, hierarchical manner, right? So then we have usually people with more experience, with more training, educating others or coaching them. So then like that, we have a continuous improvement strategy that it aligns with our quality of process and procedures, right? And eventually that shapes the policy or the processes that we would like to have as part of the strategic asset management plan.
Thank you, Carlos. And the next question is for you as well. How does asset management contribute to corporate change and corporate consciousness? Well, that's an important question, right? Because any new technologies affecting the roles and functions of people, that's already changed. And usually we get to operate or to work based on the function or the training that we get at university or at a technical college or any other previous experience that we have had. However, with this increase in technological changes, that requires for us to continue to improve ourselves, to continue to learn, and as well in the future as well requirements of human resources is that of engaging and recruiting people that are already with that mindset. It's not only about the capacity of earned knowledge and know-how, but it's as well that capacity of future learning and know-how. And I think that's something that requires change management, and there's many methodologies to do that. I mean, we have ProSci, the ASCAR model, we have ADISIS, we have so many ways of doing it, but it's beyond just providing information or awareness to people. It's as well about understanding their styles in leadership, their styles in personality, and it's very important to keep always to continue to be an entrepreneur, a producer, an administrator, and an integrator. So we have to have a balanced team. And that will be, I would say, the future of organizations where you can have trust and respect
of differences in styles and differences in ways that we communicate and we work together. So that's going to be an added value that besides technical knowledge and expertise and know-how will give us that edge that we require in the future.
Thank you, Carlos. The next question is for Jessica. How does your organization manage and collect information for COF, LOF, and risk for your collection system assets?
Sure. Thanks, Rita. So at the City of Portland, we probably have about 230 miles of sanitary sewer pipes, which are both combined and sanitary. And so we need to, every year for our EPA administrative order, we need to be CCTVing or inspecting those lines for operational issues, structural issues. And so what we do for our consequence of failure, likelihood of failure, and risk program is we go out each year and we CCTV about 6% of our system. We take that information, that condition information, and we put that into we have a software that we use for that called IT Pipes, where all of that inspection information goes into that system. Each one of our pipes is also in our GIS. Within our GIS, we have attributes for all of our consequence of failure. So like, for instance, what would happen if this pipe were to fail? Is it a large diameter pipe? Is this pipe near a body of water? Is this pipe near hospitals, schools? How many people does this particular pipe serve? And then looking at the likelihood of failure, so that would be anything. So likelihood of failure could be the age of pipe, the materials pipe, and then that structural condition of pipe, as well as the hydraulics of that particular pipe. So we take all of that information from our CCTV software, we bring it into our GIS, and then from there, we then bring all of that data into there's an application within CityWorks called Operational Insights. We take that information in and then give each one of those COF, LOFs a weight. So that particular program will then run the calculations and we will come up with risk numbers for all of our pipes. And once we have, and that data will then get pushed back out to our GIS. We can then take that risk information and we put that onto our online web maps as well, so that we can then start to do heat maps and show where the largest percentage of high-risk pipes are. So maybe that's where we'll do a large lining project, or we might do a large sewer separation project or a large rehab project. And so that's how we take all of our condition information, bring it into our CMMS, bring it into our GIS, do all the calculations, and then bring that information to our compliance and managers so that they can make those higher level decisions on where we're going to spend all of that money.
Thanks so much. Next question is for Carlos. How does public participation shape asset management and ensure a better decision-making process?
Thank you, Ria. So this is more related to municipal government organizations, where depending on the policies or state policies or provincial policies that are in place, is whether the public has an influence factor here on what assets or what programs, what portfolios get the funding and the resources to be made. So public participation, that's another, I would say, dimension that is shaping as well how we make decisions, right? How do we integrate the needs and demands of society with the purpose of the assets? And here's where we have to have a proper process and procedure to identify what we can afford, how much is going to cost, and what is going to be the implications in the future. There's as well the different ways of creating the funding for any public-related project other than government, right? We can have other financial services trying to get the public participation and even donations to create other specific projects. But in here, I think in the future is going to be something that we are going to be more integrated with, especially, talking about that consciousness aspect of things, where people get to know why and how things are done. So with new technologies, and as you have seen in social media, now we are even providing to users with more detailed information about certain projects, about what we do, about all the data that we gather with all these CMMS systems. However, we need to have that decision-making process in what is adding value, not only to the society, but as well to the economic development of things. And here's where that dimension influences the power and authority of governments in deciding what gets funded, how, and for how long.
Thank you so much, Carlos. Well, it's time for our final question, and it's going to be for all of the panelists. What do you see as the future of asset management technologies? And we'll start with Becky.
Just took me a second. I just really think more and more as we're starting to get into this information that's all being captured and allowing for a bigger picture as the asset management strategies are developing. You know, some of this information is being tied together from all these various systems, more integration across the business systems, feeding into like a unified view, and allowing organizations to really start to go through and take the data, the real-time data they're capturing, and not being relying as much maybe on models, although they're definitely relevant and important, but being able to take all their real-time operational data and use that to start to pull in information and develop their own expected useful life for their assets, looking off of the real-time performance of their infrastructure within their organizations based off of their geography, their management practices, their staffing, their budgeting, their funding, being able to pull all that information and start to look at that and develop their own metrics within their organization and using that to start to guide what they're doing, as well as pulling in, and I think it will become more relevant and more commonplace, some of the other applications that are out there that tie in for asset management performance and predictive modeling, such as aesthetics and you know, what you might see from Innovize and other applications such as that start to get into the more long-term future planning within asset management, but then how that all can be carried out within an organization's existing CMMS. I really think that's where things are starting to trend more and more, and we're seeing it become more commonplace within our municipal clients.
Thank you, Becky. Carlos, would you like to add to that?
Yes, I see asset management as the integration of different areas of expertise, and there should be a balance between tactical asset management. Those are all the technical side of things and data, and as well as strategic asset management. That's where all the assets fit in within the context of a community, a state or a region and country, and partnerships outside even that country. So as well, there has to be a balance between short-term efficiency and long-term effectiveness, and having that service delivery meeting both intents. As well, I see asset management as the professionalization of different areas of expertise that integrate into asset management. So asset management is not just about a certain technology or a specific system, but it's about all those areas of expertise that we rely on to support asset management. And as well, integrating other dimensions like the human element and other technologies that are shaping the way how society thinks, believes, and how decisions are made according to their levels of understanding and interest.
Thank you, Carlos. Jessica, would you like to add to what you think the future is going to be like for asset management technologies?
Sure thing, Rita. So looking at the tools that we're using now and starting to integrate all of the different business systems, sort of like what Becky said, like taking data from all of these different data sources and being able to use all of that information in one place so that you can get a really good idea of your asset information, your financial information that are tied to those assets. We're starting to look at those long-term life cycle costs and being able to do long-range planning based on real-time, ever-evolving data rather than the old way of just here's all of the static data, here's the reports as of today, tomorrow those reports are out of date. And so just really being able to use the data that's coming in real time to make these decisions going forward and integrating all of our business systems.
Thank you, Jessica. And Kirsten, your thoughts?
Yeah, I'm going to say the same thing, basically, that, we're saying the same as, getting all those different systems talking, integrated, and using that data together and making those decisions. How are we going to, there's limited funding, how are we going to make it work? How are we going to make these infrastructure assets last longer? So trying to eliminate any redundancy, get all the information that's being captured, and using that real-time information to make really smart decisions.
Thank you. And that's all the time we have for today. I want to thank Becky and Carlos and Jessica and Kirsten for sharing their knowledge and experience with us today. This is Rita Cassada, and it's been a pleasure moderating this program. Please remember to register for the next program in this series titled Talking Top Tech, Preparing for the Implementation of Automated and Connected Vehicles. It is scheduled on Thursday, October 3rd at 10 Central. Don't forget to fill out the evaluation form for today's program. The link to the survey will be emailed after the program today. A recording of today's program will be available in the APWA Members Library and on YouTube within a week. APWA members can log into the library to access past Click, Listen, Learns, Talking Top Techs, and conference content free of charge. Not an APWA member? Take the Members Library for a test drive. Spend 2 weeks accessing all the materials in our library for free. Look at the sign up link in your email today after the program. And I want to thank you for your attendance and participation during this program, and have a great day.